Hello, this is my PSA, Reduce Waste and Save Ecosystems, a public service announcement by Alvina, 4th period. The first thing I'm going to talk about is common waste reduction methods. And one way you can reduce waste is by reducing it. So that's only buying what you need, avoiding single-use products, and when companies reduce waste from the start by reducing the amount of plastic they use in their packaging. You can also reuse things instead of throwing them away. So you can repurpose items like jars, clothes, and electronics. You can recycle things, and the best way to do that is by sorting paper, plastic, and metals, and avoiding contamination of those things by like food products, so that they don't have to get thrown away and they can be recycled. And then you can also compost, which is when you use food scraps and yard waste, and bacteria decompose them to become nutrient-rich soil, and this allows you to not have to buy synthetic fertilizers, and so you can save money and the environment. For e-waste programs, you can take part in this and have the proper disposal of electronics that allows their parts to be reused instead of just throwing your electronics away, and wasting valuable metals and parts that could be used in future electronics. The second thing I'm going to talk about is solid waste disposal methods. So these are some things that can be disposed of in a landfill. So non-recyclable household garbage, treated sewage sludge, and ash from incinerators. And some things that cannot be disposed of in a landfill are hazardous waste like chemicals and batteries, and medical waste, because these need special handling. And now I will describe the anatomy of a sanitary landfill. So this is the sanitary landfill. So the first thing that is important to note with the landfill is the top cover right here. And this is a soil layer to contain all the odors and prevent pests from being attracted to the actual garbage in the landfill. And then we have the waste layer, which is right here, and that is compacted soil waste. And then there's the leachate collection system, and that is symbolized by these dots right here. Those represent the pipes of the leachate collection system, and this is the point in this landfill where the leachate is collected. And by the way, leachate is like trash juice, which is Miss Minzemeyer's definition too. There's also a liner system. So there's clay and plastic liners all around the bottom that prevent leachate from leaking into groundwater and exposing the fresh groundwater to the pollutants that are present in the leachate. And this is clay and plastic liners. And then there's a methane collection system right here, and this collects all the methane gas that is produced in the landfill, and this methane can either just be burned off or released into the atmosphere, Or we can be sustainable and use it for cogeneration, so like the heating or the electricity generation of the nearby buildings. And this is the anatomy of a sanitary landfill when you do it right. Next, we have the effects of solid waste disposal methods, and I'll talk about the pros and the cons. So, some of the pros are in landfills, as a method of solid waste disposal, it is a pretty safe containment for the most part, and you can produce energy from the methane that is produced, so using methane for cogeneration. But a con of landfills are you risk groundwater contamination, so when it's not a sanitary landfill and you're not doing it right, then it's not safe containment, and you do risk groundwater contamination. And another cons of landfills is you do have pretty big space limits because there's not infinite land. So you can't use all of the land for landfills. And then we have incineration. So a pro of incineration is it reduces the volume of the actual waste itself. So we can maximize the amount of space we have in a landfill if you incinerate the waste. And it also can be used to generate electricity. So this is also useful. But a con of incineration is that it releases air pollutants like CO2, which is a greenhouse gas and contributes to global warming, and it can be pretty costly to maintain. And then one pro of solid waste disposal methods is that you can do recycling and composting, which diverts waste and also conserves resources. But a con of solid waste disposal is that people don't follow the rules and do illegal dumping, which harms wildlife and pollutes habitats. So, two sides to every coin. And so for the fifth thing I'm going to talk about, it's the resource use and ecosystem consequences of waste management. So there are three different kinds of broad categories of effects. So for some physical effects, deforestation for wood and paper destroys habitats of a lot of organisms, and it greatly reduces the biodiversity of areas where trees are a main habitat for organisms. Mining scars landscapes, so not only are there negative effects on like aesthetics, but it can also cause erosion, which decreases soil health and ultimately will also decrease the biodiversity of an ecosystem. Also, landfills consume open land and they fragment ecosystems. So when habitats get fragmented, organisms can't easily mate or find food or habitats to live in. So that also decreases biodiversity in an area. Some chemical effects of solid waste disposal is leachate from landfills can pollute soil and groundwater, and we use groundwater to drink, and so that can be really gross. Pesticides and fertilizers in agriculture can run off into waterways, which can lead to algal bloom and then mass algal die-off and finally eutrophication, which really harms the biodiversity of the affected aquatic ecosystems. For incinerator emissions, that releases pollutants into the air, like I mentioned before, like CO2, which is a greenhouse gas, and contributes to global warming by trapping heat close to Earth's surface. And then we have biological effects. So like I mentioned before, landfills fragment ecosystems, and that can lead to habitat loss, and that will reduce species populations. Toxins released by incineration or leachate can affect reproduction, growth, and survival. And plastic pollution, maybe through illegal dumping, can kill marine life and enter the food chain. And microplastics are a big issue like that, so they need to be handled correctly. Changing current practices. So how can we fix what we're doing wrong? One current practice that we have is when we